Welcome to Easy Vibes. We believe in having interesting conversations with all kinds of people from all walks of life. And I am your host, Chico Moya. And in this episode, we had the privilege of having a conversation with Jade, or Jade, as she will call herself. She's an American currently living in Finland with her husband. I won't introduce her too much because she does a good job of introducing herself quite soon into this episode. But for those of you who know me, know that I'm quite a positive person. And I was really blown away to have a conversation with someone who just exudes positivity and hope and joy. So I'm sure you will enjoy this. So enjoy this episode. Jade, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Lovely to be here in Helsinki with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So I thought... you and I have been chatting a little bit on the way here. I thought to just start off, if you were to describe yourself and what you kind of do and all that sort of stuff, go for it. Like,
Okay.
Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. So my name's Jade Ventoniemi, and I have now been living in Finland for 5 years, almost 5 years, and I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Now, since living in Finland, I've tried lots of new different things that have kind of morphed into this new Jade. By the way, my given name is Jade, but now that I'm in Finland, I say Jade.
Oh, do you actually say Jade?
Yeah. So I always introduce myself as Jade. And but now I'm becoming this like kind of new person. I really enjoy time outside in nature in the forest. I teach indoor cycling classes, which brings me a lot of joy and energy. And I'm also a full-time marketing entrepreneur. So I do freelance marketing, influencer projects, and marketing consulting. And yeah, I'd say I'm a type of person who is energetic and just likes to take the challenges that come my way and find something positive in it. Of course, life in Finland as a foreigner isn't always easy, but I try to find the positive things.
That's... You said something there that's quite interesting. I find that a lot of people here seem to take pride in being a bit pessimistic about the weather, about the people here and whatever. So, what is your process in trying to find the good and the things worth putting your energy towards, as opposed to, I don't know, just being depressed?
Yeah, I think it's a conscious choice for me, but also a natural choice for me. I've always been a positive person, optimistic. Even back in the US when I was there, I was like known as the Energizer Bunny, positive. Jade is always smiling. So I think it's a little bit in my personality, but also now it's a conscious choice. Things are hard. And I think I've noticed that people overall maybe are pessimistic about the hard winter, about the anti-socialness of Finns. I'm putting it in quotes because they're social in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to add to that. There's enough people who do talk about things negatively. And I'd rather just try to be like a little bit of like a brightness.
Right.
And so sometimes I do talk about those things, but I always put in the captions like, hey, everyone's different. It's okay that people are different. Things are hard, but you can get through it. And I think that's what I really want to do with my platform, is show that you can live a fulfilling life here in Finland as a foreigner, despite the hard things. And so, yeah, it's definitely a conscious choice, but it's a little bit easier for me because I am a positive person.
So has that always been a feature of your character, to try and find the hope and the light in dark and hopeless situations? Is that Jade?
Yeah, I would say so. And I also have to learn, and I'm still learning, to not to push my positivity in all circumstances, because there is a time to realize a situation for what it is, you know?
Yeah.
So there shouldn't always be a positive spin, but for the most part, I try to insert it. And it's definitely been a characteristic of me and with my friends in life. But then sometimes when I'm at home with just my husband, maybe he sees the not positive side, but overall, most of the time people see the positive side.
Right. How do you, Because this is a question I've pondered before and I have my own view of it, but like, how do you balance the being genuinely positive and feeling like you perhaps have to force it a little bit? How do you balance that? And how do you make sure that, like, I understood what you were saying about it, not forcing it too much because then it becomes like a bit toxic.
Yeah.
But how do you find that balance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm only recently finding. And thankfully, I have a few friends I can kind of test it out on, so to say. So, for example, I am quite bubbly and happy all the time. But sometimes I have a couple of friends who I can just hang out with, and I don't have to be like that. I can be tired. I cannot want to talk 100 miles an hour, and it's okay. And but when it is around strangers or people I don't know, I do try to be positive. I do force it because that interaction, as humans, why not give someone something to brighten it up? So even if I am sad, mad, frustrated, and I'm at the store and I make eye contact with someone, I'm gonna smile at them.
You see, that's really cool. I think sometimes we miss out, or we don't see just how much of a gift as even a smile can be.
Yeah.
Are you having a problem with the
No, I just wanted it up a little bit higher, but I think I got it now.
So I completely get you. I don't know if you ever get this, but do you ever feel corny for being positive? Like, do you ever feel like you finish editing a video, there's like snow and whatever, and then you're like, wow, it's beautiful in here, and you got lights and whatever, and then you're just about to post it and you're like, is that coming across as too... I don't know if you've ever had that before. I don't know.
I think when I was in university back in the US, I had people kind of want to put that on me. Like, right. Oh, you're too positive. Like, that can't be real. So I think back then I had a few people they're kind of bullies, but a few people like try to put that on me. Yeah. And then that made me think back then, like, am I too positive? But now I've really just been embracing it. Like, now here, 5 years in Finland, also realizing it's maybe quite rare. So I lean into it all the way. So now when I make a video that I'm really positive about, I'm like, that's funny. Like in all my videos, I'm smiling when I look at all my videos. I'm like smiling. It's funny, but I don't think too positive because I think now I do want to lean into it. And like thinking about personal brand, I do want to be known as a happy, positive person. Yeah. So for me, when I post a super happy video, I'm not like, ooh, cringe. I'm like, that's nice. Yeah. I was able to pull it off again. And I mean, sometimes so I record and I'm happy. And then maybe when I turn it off, I do just kind of like, I'm not just smiling on my couch at home by myself. Like I'm to go normal. Yep. But yeah.
I completely get you. I sometimes feel like, because I went through a time when I felt kind of like, I was asking myself the real questions of like, yo, am I being genuine or is this an act or whatever? But then the more I looked into it, I was just like, at the very least, it's an expression of my art. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever looked back at some of your older videos and been inspired by it or felt like if it was like a super positive video. I don't know if you've ever looked back at it and been like, oh, wow. I don't know. Do you ever look back at some of your older videos at all?
Yeah, I do. Mainly to see like what worked well and what didn't. But I don't know. I think about content creation like quite strategically. Right. Like, so I am thinking about what worked well, what kind of hook did I have, how many seconds was this? Yeah. So it informs my decisions. But inspiration-wise, because I just now started 6 months ago, like doing videos for myself and growing my channels.
Really? Has it been 6 months? Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
So of course I've grown as a person, but not much has changed from then. Like I'm still making the same type of video. So it's not like, oh, wow, that young girl was so different then. So right now I haven't looked back and kind of felt anyway, because I'm doing the same thing. Right. But I see what you're saying because you've been doing it for a little while now, kind of.
I think it's been a year now.
Yeah.
Where I started to take content creation seriously and started making actual videos. But I think, at least for me personally, the one thing that has really helped me, and you can move it closer to you, that it's got wheels if you want to put your leg.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. The one thing that has really saved me here in Finland is gratitude. For me personally, I feel like exactly what you're saying is trying to find the good in the perceived bad has helped me tremendously. Is that something that you do? Like, are you someone who is generally like a grateful type of person, or is it something that you?
Or are you ungrateful?
Well, I feel like most people are just kind of. We tend to focus a lot more on the negative side. Like, for example, no one is going to go on if you make a negative video, no one's going to be like, yo, bro, you too negative. Like, I feel like most people are kind of like, being negative is
true. Gravitating towards it.
Yeah, people in fact think it's kind of cool that you like super negative. But if you're like positive, you're like, hey guys, today, people are like, God damn, bro, just relax.
That's true. Yeah. So I feel like overall, I am a very grateful person. And I also feel like I'm very privileged because I have a Finnish husband who it's helped me integrate and adapt to life in Finland so well. Having his family introduce new hobbies to me has helped me get more active. So I feel very grateful for so many things. And then again, like in natural things, like in the winter, I do feel great. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, at least it's snowing today. It's not just slushy. Right. And then on like a really cold day, I'm like, oh, at least it's like minus 20 and not the weird -2 where it's like, is it cold or is it warm?
Right.
So I am quite grateful, and I am privileged in a lot of different ways, and I have a really nice life here.
Yeah.
And I know not everyone has that. So I'm also positive and happy and grateful for the life I have. But I can also understand why some people maybe aren't, because things maybe aren't as easy. Maybe they don't have a spouse here. Maybe they came here by themselves. I mean, like, you came here by yourself technically, but you're still positive. But anyways, there's different circumstances. So I don't think everyone has to be positive. I don't think everyone can always see what they should be grateful for. But I am very lucky and very happy with my life. So I'm going to hopefully shine that light, and maybe someone can be like, oh, I just took my first Finnish class and I'm grateful for that. It's like, oh, well, there you go. That's a great first step.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I'm of the belief that gratitude is an exercise as opposed to something that naturally arises. Of course, there's moments where that sunset just hits perfect and you're like, wow. But in general, I kind of feel like a lot of people have this idea that you're just naturally supposed to feel grateful when it doesn't work like that. Because, of course, having lots of money and stuff is awesome. It helps with a lot of things. But being able to be grateful, I feel like it's something that you have to be aware of and conscious of.
Yeah.
I just feel. But then again, how did you end up here? Yeah. I feel like that's an important question.
Yeah. So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. But then I went to Florida to study at university and play basketball. So if you're familiar with the American education system, university is very expensive, but I had a full ride scholarship for basketball, and that was my whole focus. But anyways.
Really? What position, by the way?
Point guard.
I have no idea what that is.
So you just wanted to throw out the question, so it seemed like you know.
No, yeah. I was just... because I'll look at it later.
There you go.
And be like, oh.
Jade was a point guard.
Yeah.
So point guard. And my lovely husband was also at the same university in Florida. Okay. And so same with the education system in Finland. They're not so focused on sports as much as we are in the US. So a lot of top athletes will actually go to the US and go to university and play basketball or their sports there.
Right.
So we met there. We started out as friends, both playing basketball, so we saw each other a lot, lived in the same apartment building, and friendship bloomed into love. And then when it was time to graduate, my now husband, had a basketball contract here in Finland. So we moved to Finland together. And he's from Finland, and we knew his family would be here. And it would be a jump for me, but a jump I was ready for.
That's really interesting. And you hadn't been to Finland before coming here?
I did visit. So once I met my boyfriend at the time, I visited Finland for a month in the summer. And then we
June? July?
I think it was May, but it was still better than the winter months. And then I visited one more time for a month. And then that next year is when I moved. So I did get to preview Finland. It wasn't too much of a surprise, which I would also recommend if you can do. But yeah.
And then what was your first, at least when you moved here? Because I find there is a difference between just visiting and coming here. Did you find that you went through a period of adjustments, or did you feel like you hit the ground running?
Big question. Different things I'm thinking of at the same time. Hitting the ground running. Well, I knew when I was moving here that I wanted to have a job when I was here already. So I was working for an online company teaching English to Chinese students. So at least that I had hit the ground running with. I had a job already.
So you didn't go through that period of time that a lot of people go through where you just like broke and it's difficult.
Yeah. And so I was thinking ahead with that. And so I secured that. So that was hitting the ground running. And then we moved to a new city. Didn't know anything about it or what to do there at all, where to go, what to do, who to try to find friends with. So my first year in Finland was quite different than it is now. And it was hard, and I didn't have friends, and I didn't speak the language, and I didn't have hobbies. But I would just walk to the store and back and go to Finnish classes and back and talk to nice people in the class and back home. So I didn't make an effort to like figure out anything outside of those lines I went. But overall, good position because I had a job. I had a husband who also had a job. And I did have this Finnish classes, which was nice to get out the house. And the store was close, but I mean, in general, in Finland, the store is always close you can walk to, which is very new to me that you can walk to the store and like walk back home. So yeah, ground running, it was okay. I was okay speed. I was like briskly walking. I was happy. I wasn't, sorry when I say happy, I was happy with where I was, technically. I was really just glad I had a job to keep me busy because I don't know what I would do at home when my husband was gone playing basketball, what I would do during the day if I didn't have like that job online. But a very different life that I didn't do any hobbies. I had this one neighbor who was an older lady who was also from US, maybe 70s or 80s. And I remember talking to her and she was telling me when she was younger, all the things she used to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I could have never imagined doing so many things. And she was like, why not? And then like now looking back, that was such a pivotal conversation because now I'm doing so many different things, trying so many things. But that first year Jade, it was very different. I didn't do anything. But as soon as I kind of got over that first year, I'm like, you know what? I want to do everything now.
Right.
So I would say like it took me at least another year to actually really hit the ground running with my own passions and own ideas and hobbies and things I wanted to do. But the first year I was just like plopped. I was like, okay, here you are. You're okay. Here you are.
So you never had one of those moments where you're like, I need to get out of this shithole or whatever.
I am such a clinger to my husband. Like I'm just so clingy. Right. I'm like, wherever he is, I'm so okay being. We could be like on a freaking stranded island. I'd be happy there. So I think that's like a big
awesome.
thing. So like if I had him, like that's okay.
Yeah.
So I never felt like, oh, we got to get out of here.
Right.
And it was interesting because living in a new country is such a new experience. So even though I wasn't doing anything special, the first snow was like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? I'm from the South in the US, so we didn't have a lot of snow. Or if you have a drop, everything's canceled. Roads are closed. School is closed. Oh, so the first winter was interesting. Yeah.
Oh, if that happened here, school would be closed for most of the year. Yeah.
And so there was still like interesting things happening. The seasons were very interesting to me. The fact we lived by a lake was interesting.
Yeah.
Hearing the language was interesting. So
what did you think about the language, by the way? I'm sure you had hints of it before, right? Like as an American, like I'm sure the closest language, I mean, you guys learn Spanish, right?
Yeah. And that's the only culture I was exposed to when I lived in Georgia was Mexican. Some of like neighbors and people in school were like Mexican, but that's really the only culture, other country I'd ever heard of until I went to university. And I met my husband and there was other nationalities there. But yeah, so hearing Finnish, never heard of Finland, technically, before I met my husband. Of course, you're aware it's a country, maybe.
I think there's a place in the US called New Finland or something.
Yeah, sure. So like, I never had heard of that country. So I definitely never heard of the language. So it was quite interesting to me. I've been interested in languages, so it was cool to hear. And I actually did study Finnish while in Florida with a tutor online. So that was fun too.
Really?
But my main motivation was because my husband used to talk to his best friend on the phone in Finnish. I'm like, oh, one day I'm going to know.
Really? That
was the motivation.
That was the motivation?
And that's why I started learning like 2 months after meeting him. So I'm like, gotta know what you guys are talking about. Of course, I didn't learn that fast, but.
So where's your Finnish at now?
It's quite good. I just passed.
Yeah, because I watched some of your videos and you be talking Finnish like chill. Like.
Thanks. I just passed the Uki test, so I can get my Finnish citizenship. I just applied for citizenship.
That is awesome. I am not there yet.
That's okay. You decide when you start.
True.
And that was the biggest thing for me. Like I remember, maybe it was 2 years ago. I was telling my husband like, I've been here for 3 years now and it's been comfortable. I've been able to speak English whenever I needed to. I haven't had any troubles with anything like major. And I'm like, maybe now it's time to get uncomfortable. Maybe I should speak Finnish more. Maybe I should only speak Finnish when we're at your family's house.
Yeah.
When I exit this house, I only speak Finnish. And I just, you just turn it on and you're like, it's hard. I sound terrible, but just gotta start.
No, I'm completely with you. I think when I first moved here, I jumped on the learning Finnish train.
Okay, great.
Because I moved here for a woman. That was the reason.
Was it a Finnish woman?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
That was the reason I moved here. And for a little bit of time, like I went to classes and stuff. Go. And I was
Level make you do crazy things.
Yeah, I was like super into it. But then life just got really busy.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I was doing a job that did not require any Finnish.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I feel like a part of me thought that Finland was just a pit stop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't really. Finland was not something I wanted a part of once upon a time. Yeah, part of the reason I accepted coming here was, I say that accepted, but
they requested your appearance here.
No, I guess what's a good way of putting it? The way I reasoned with myself was that, okay, at that time, music was my main thing. So I was just like, okay, hey, listen, Finland is in Europe. I'll still do music there. And all these other countries are pretty close. So I guess if I play my cards right, I might be able to have shows in some of these other countries that are really near, and that's how I basically reasoned with myself, because I didn't know what the heck Finland was.
Yeah.
I was like, Finland who? England? No, Finland.
Yeah.
Where is that? And then, so when I arrived here and I heard the language, I was just like, it's
a lot.
If aliens came to Earth and started speaking a language,
it would be
and
Finnish.
It sounded like Finnish, I would understand. I'd be like, yo, hey.
Checks out.
Whatever. And it took me a bit of time to get you comfortable with the language. And now, if I travel anywhere, every other language sounds much stranger to me than Finnish.
Oh, nice. Okay. So it's calling me, welcome you. Like your videos with the blonde hair. It's like literally calling you like, come on, Chico. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come here. You belong to us.
Yeah, you can't keep shutting the door on it. You gotta let it in a little bit, try it some more.
Exactly.
And I think you'll surprise yourself too.
I think so. I think I just need I feel like there's so many things that are happening that I just need to, no, that's coping. I guess I am going to need to create time for it, create a little space for it.
Yes. But hey, I think the biggest tip I can give, because I also haven't studied it since my first year.
Right.
But just using it, because you do have it. You do know how to say, I want, can I, coffee, anything.
Right.
But just starting to use those things, and then you'll start to hear what the other person says. So you don't really have to make time for it. You just have to use it. And
it's like repetition and that sort of stuff. Because I also want to pass that bloody test, okay?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard.
So you say, so was it a difficult test to pass? Was it a difficult test?
It was. And I'm a good test taker.
Really?
Knock on wood. I was always really good in school. I felt like I had a good command of Finnish, but it was just hard. Sorry, microphone. It was just so hard. There's 4 parts. I don't know how much you know about the test.
I know nothing about it.
There's 4 parts: speaking, reading, listening, and talking.
Oh, God.
And you're in a room of like 30 other people. And for each section, everyone's doing the same thing. So you're all talking at the same time.
Oh, gosh.
And then it's a topic you either know or you don't know. So, for example, the grocery store ones, great. I mean, I passed the test, so I knew enough. But the grocery store ones, where it's like an announcement in a grocery store, what does he say? I'm like, oh, great. That's what I hear every day. I know what he's saying. But they're like, okay, now we're in a forest with a lumberjack. I'm like, oh, Lordy, what is this? What are these words? But context clues help. But anyways, it was just really hard. Afterwards, I'm like, there's no way I passed any of these sections. Yeah. But I did.
That's awesome because because technically I'm still a student. Technically, because I'm basically...
You're enrolled.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing my work is supposed to be part of my education, my practical training, whatever. But anyway, the degree is kind of stupid. It's not, I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But anyway, the point is, I remember I had to go for some sort of test. And
to see the level you're at.
Yeah, because I felt like the whole system I've been enrolled in, it's a little bit confusing and I feel like it hasn't been handled too well. And that's just my personal experience. It's been good for other people. So then once in a blue moon, I'll get an email like, whatever, come do a test. And I got this email and I was just like, you guys haven't taught me nothing.
Yeah, and you want me to take a test?
Right? Because they wanted me to do random subjects as well because the degree was supposed to be about media. But they wanted me to do physics and math and... Right?
Okay.
So anyway, it was weird. But so I arrived there and then I didn't even know what the test was. We all sit down in this thing and then they give us these papers and it's all in Finnish. Oh. And then they're like, okay, you guys have an hour. I'm like, an hour to do
to do what exactly?
And they were like, start. And even in the beginning, the lady explained the whole test in Finnish. And listen, fair enough. I enjoy the Finnish language now. I liken it to black coffee, where it might take a bit of time to get used to, but once you get used to it, hey, you just...
It's your drink of choice.
Yeah, it becomes perhaps not your drink of choice, but
you can tolerate it.
Yeah, or
if someone offers it to you,
you would probably take it. Like,
interesting.
And then she explained the whole thing in Finnish, and then she was like, "Okay, you guys can start." And I have never felt so stupid in my life. Like, do you know those moments where you just sit there and you're like, "Wow." I literally know nothing.
That's how I felt about this test.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's how I felt. Like for the reading section.
Right.
Literally looking around the room and I'm like, does anyone know what this says? Right.
Yeah, But then how did you manage?
Was that test you took was it a Finnish test or was it a physics test in Finnish, or you maybe don't even know.
No, I think it was purely a Finnish test.
Okay, so it was
I think it was supposed to be some sort of marker to see where you're at in your Finnish speaking. Okay. But it was like, I don't know. It's like, here, let's do a bloody physics equation to see how good your understanding of numbers is or something. Yeah. It's just, it felt like, yo, bro, you don't need to put the bar so high to just check where I'm at. Then, like, they just put it all the way up there.
And then everyone's in the barrel. Okay.
And has being able to speak a bit of Finnish improved your experience here? And pause. Let me just see. Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. So has it improved your experience living here?
100%.
Wow.
And 100%. And I already had a happy life here before, but I think it's just a feeling of fulfillment and a feeling of integration. Like, for example, at my last company that I worked at, I was able to have lunch with my colleagues and speak Finnish with them.
Wow.
Because it's just such a big feeling to have when you're with a colleague and they are speaking English just for you there. There's 5 people at the table and they're just speaking English for you. So there's that guilt there.
Yeah.
And then me telling them, like previously before I spoke Finnish, like, no, you guys can just speak Finnish, and then not understanding, then you feel left out. So there's the two sides, the guilt that everyone's speaking English for you, and then the second side, the loneliness that you don't know what's going on. So being able to speak Finnish feels so good, like accomplishment-wise and integration-wise in those moments. And I mean, it really just feels like, for me, just a little bit of pride. Like, I'm so proud of myself. And sometimes I like snap out of it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just booked an appointment for my dog at the vet without any questions, like about what happened, or like without, because I used to make sure my husband's near me. If they said something I don't know, like, Henka, what did they say? What should I say? Or then I'll get off the phone. I'm like, Henka, can you call them back? I don't know what they said actually. But now I can like completely communicate in almost all situations, knock on wood, without doubt. And it's just such a good, comfortable feeling. Like, wow, I'm not missing anything, and I don't understand all conversations. And I do tune out sometimes, like when I don't feel like working my brain with the Finnish. But it 100% has improved my life and feeling like I belong here. Because now, when you aren't in a Finnish conversation, your mind just starts working. Like, oh, they're leaving me out on purpose. Oh, I wonder what they're talking about. Oh, I'm so embarrassed I don't know this. Oh my gosh, I don't belong here. Everyone looks so different than me. If you're not in that conversation, your mind's going 100 miles an hour, thinking about all these doubts and situations. But when you're in the conversation, oh my gosh, you don't have to think about all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how it used to be when I was not in the conversations. I start to feel so sad and like small and like, oh my gosh, I don't belong. And oh my gosh, who do I think I am? Oh my gosh, I'm not wearing what everyone else is wearing. You just start noticing all these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I can definitely relate to you in certain aspects. I think that feeling of feeling invisible or deaf.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like, but for me, those feelings were stronger when I first arrived. Like, I remember being somewhere and being invited out somewhere, and then everyone's laughing. And I'm like, holy shit. Like,
must be good.
Like, I think I got more annoyed than anything else. Not in anyone in particular, but like, I was pretty new here. And I'm like, if you invite me somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, that's whatever. But as time went on, I began to kind of enjoy hearing other people speak in Finnish. I genuinely stopped minding. I actually didn't mind just being there. Like, if we're eating lunch and people are talking in Finnish, I'm so chill with it now. Like, I don't need to be brought in.
Yeah, you can just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
I've felt like that too at different points also, where I'm like, oh, it's kind of nice. Like, please speak Finnish. Like, because it's a nice break for me. I don't have to pay attention and don't feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think it's it's now that I really like Finnish. Now I'm like, I feel warm-hearted when I think of the language. And now I'm like, okay, I guess like how you were saying, I guess I can start putting a little bit more effort in trying to understand it and use it and whatever. But it felt like it was a bit of a journey.
For sure.
For me. So have you felt, because you mentioned about feeling different or whatever, skin color here in Finland, was that like a massive thing for you? Did you feel like you were surrounded by lions?
That's funny. That is a question I get asked a lot because people obviously associate Finland, Nordic, blonde hair, blue eyes, must be a lot of white people. There are, spoiler alert, that's true. But for me, there's just different layers a little bit. So one, from the area I grew up in Georgia, primarily white. I'm very used to being the only Black student in my class, or one or two in my class, like classroom. And actually in the US, in the South, there are quite racist areas still, and some beliefs that have held on. So I could go into a restaurant and you feel like all the eyes are on you because people are literally looking and kind of talking about you. Or you go to a certain, and you go to a certain area with my basketball team, who is all Black, my basketball team. Then there's a couple of white people on them. We go to an area and there's the Confederate flags and people come out on their porch to look at us. So that's the US to paint not the
Atlanta.
US. And technically not Atlanta. I live a little bit outside.
Okay.
But that's where I grew up. So then coming to Finland, I was quite shocked not to feel like I stood out so much. Because even though I look around and I don't often see people who look like me, I didn't feel like I looked different because people don't even look at you here. If you go into a store, it's not like, no one kind of cares about you, like to say in like a nice, but imagine that in a nice way, that no one cares about what you look like or what you're doing. And I just remember like there's been some times where I'm somewhere at a restaurant and then just for some reason it clicks. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the only Black person in here. I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't even notice. But like there's some place in the US that I'll go and like you immediately notice and you immediately feel the energy, kind of like if there's a bunch of old white people in the Cracker Barrel. Like that's where we've been and that's where you feel like that at the Cracker Barrel, or if you're at a Waffle House on a different side of town, like there's a different energy there. So to answer your question, coming to Finland where it is primarily white, not so racially diverse, I haven't felt as outside. I haven't felt like an outsider as much, even though I look very different. Thankfully, I haven't been treated differently, but that's not the case for everyone. There is cases of racism and discrimination in Finland as well. I'm very grateful that I haven't had to deal with that. But yeah, from the feeling of perception, I felt more racist stares, racist feeling like I don't belong back at home.
Right.
In my home state than I have in Finland, where people primarily are white, blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe I was dancing around it for a long time, but overall.
No. I think it needed the way you fleshed it out actually gives a nice perspective because I completely get you. I think my view is that any new culture you go into, there will be, I guess, walls that need to be climbed, certain adversities that you need to overcome wherever you go on the planet. I'm from South Africa and racial tensions are quite high there. But for me personally, even speaking to people who have experienced some sort of racial bias against them or for them or whatever, the sense that I get is that the wall of adversity when it comes to race for people of at least our skin color feels a lot lower than a lot of, like most other places I go to. It just feels, or at least a lot of the Nordic, Scandinavian places I've been to, it's almost like, it's like, yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure I could find racist people. Like, I'm pretty sure, but they're not the people that really matter. And
they know who you interact with every day.
Exactly. And I find most of the time, race isn't something that pops up in conversations. There are times where I've totally forgotten about skin color until a moment comes where I'm like, hey, I'm the only brother out here. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I do feel like some of the tensions here in Finland are a lot more to do with culture. Like, I find that Finnish people feel some way if they feel like their culture is being supplanted or being pushed aside.
Yeah.
That's why even an old grandma, Finnish grandma, if you say something to her in Finnish, her face lights up and she's like, oh,
yeah,
this black brother can speak my language. I don't know. And it's almost like this endearing sort of way in general. But I haven't personally felt like it's we don't want black people here. I don't know. At least that's just my perspective on it.
Yeah. I feel this similar way. And again, there's a lot of things. I don't follow politics that much. Again, very grateful and fortunate. Not a lot of it affects me. Like, that's a very privileged thing to be able to not follow politics so much. But of course, a lot of things in the Finnish side are talking about the immigration. Of course, that does affect me, but just a little bit differently because I'm almost have my citizenship soon. So that wouldn't affect me that much. But yeah. And I mean, people do say they don't want immigrants coming in. But I think what you hit on was interesting because it is a lot, people just some Finnish people want to hold on to their Finnish values and culture. And so on some of my posts, people will comment, like if I'm talking about how nice and quiet it is, and like, yeah, but the immigrants, those foreigners, and maybe they'll say a certain nationality, are so loud and ruining it. And it's like, oh, well, like, don't blame just the foreigners. I'm sure other people are allowed too. But again, it's like they just want it to be quiet. It's not necessarily they're saying that like black people are the worst.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think when people try and analyze the situation when it comes to immigrants, I think you could try and simplify it, thereby getting rid of a lot of the nuance. You could just say they just hate immigrants, right? Or you can, that's one aspect that people can view it as. But the reason why I think it's mostly about culture, it's simply like, if you look at a place like Sweden, right? When, say, I don't know if it was in 2014 or something, when a lot of Syrian refugees or whatever came into Sweden, the issue that they had is that they didn't integrate people very well. So when you don't integrate people very well, what happens is that a subculture gets created in the culture that is accepted in the country. So for example, the culture in Finland in general is that if you see something that isn't yours, you don't take it. You usually take it to the police station or something. That's the way people grow up here. It's just the vibe, right? If you come from let's say you come from a war-torn area and you haven't been integrated into the culture and you're on survival mode.
That's true.
You will act differently. And when subcultures are created in an area, I don't think there's anything problematic about discussing that and being like, okay, cool. How do we actually, I'm sure everyone just wants to live in peace and whatever. So how do we integrate people into this? And for Finland, I think they see what's happened to Sweden, where there's certain areas in Sweden where even the police is worried to go.
Oh, interesting.
And that Sweden was like Finland, right? And then, so there's that aspect of it. And then there's also the aspect of the welfare system. The way the system has been created is when someone isn't able to help themselves, you help them and then they help you. But if a lot of people are coming and finding it more beneficial to not ever have to try find work and just chill, and a lot of Finnish people do that too. But I think it just hits different for Finnish people when yo, you came from where?
Yeah.
And now you're just eating my tax money or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of at least the way I kind of view it. So I understand some of the frustrations. But
I think it would just, like you kind of pointed at, is that if we as people could realize that people who are other than us don't necessarily have bad intentions. Yeah. They're just different. And like you said, need integrating into society and the right tools to get there. And of course, there are bad people from every nationality, ethnic group. And but if we could just be like, okay, they're not coming here with bad intentions. They just want a life too, a safe life.
Yeah. Exactly that. And I think there is also just the practicalities of like the welfare system. It wasn't really created to take in a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like it was because it had this nice balance of like, hey, we're helping you out. And next thing, boom, you come back and you're in the economy.
Yeah, you contribute.
You're contributing and whatever. And in this day and age, there's just a lot of humanitarian immigration happening, and all over the world, everyone's just kind of like, what's the balance between trying to be open and trying to be trying to let people in and giving people opportunities, and if it negatively impacts your people, I guess. I think that's the balance, and it's an interesting one. But I personally, I just like to watch people debate about it, and I'm just like, why so many extremes? Just in general. So you say you do what's the CrossFit thing you do?
So I do CrossFit also as a participant, just for fun, but I teach indoor cycling class.
Oh, indoor cycling. How did that start? Because you do it in Finnish, right?
I do it in Finnish, yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, so that was a fun challenge. And again, just something inside my brain the past year was like, okay, why not me? Again, if anyone can do it, why can't I do it?
Right.
And I discovered spinning, indoor cycling, after I quit basketball 6-7 years ago in the US, and I loved it. And then I came to Finland and I couldn't find any spin class that was the style that I liked. Like, and I've been to multiple. And then I'm like, you know what? What if I was a spin teacher and did this style that I wanted to? So then I started making YouTube videos at home, just practicing, because I'm like, okay, I need to practice before I become a spin teacher. And then once I had like a digital portfolio of my classes, I reached out to gyms in Lahti, where I live, and saying, hey, are you looking for spin instructors? This is what my classes are like. I can do it in English or in Finnish. Again, it's like, my advice to people is like, say yes now, figure it out later. So I never taught in Finnish technically before then, but I'm like, I can figure it out. And then I got a couple people who were like, yeah, come on down to the gym. And then, so now I've been teaching for, again, like 6 months, 7 months. So like this flame just started like 6-7 months ago with my content creation, with teaching spin, with just these different dreams and chasing after them, where I'm like, I can do this. Why not? Why not me? Like, literally, what would be the reason I couldn't do this?
Right. What was what broke the camel's back in terms of pushing you to be like, yo, actually, it's time to pursue what's in my heart?
Well, what broke the camel's back this phase of life, like the past 7-8 months, that phase was in my past job. I was getting really good at what I was doing and being recognized. And people just started noticing. And so when I was ready to talk about growth at that job, and that wasn't very clear, I'm like, you know what? I know as a person I can grow more and do more. And these things that are whispering in my ear, I can go for. So once kind of I realized my cap for this corporate career was there, I'm like, well, I'm going to start fulfilling some other things I'm interested in outside of work, which we have so much, work-life balance is pretty good in Finland. And people are encouraged to have a life outside of work. So now I'm like, okay, well, let me do some more things outside of work that fill me up and build me up.
Yeah.
And so spin was one of them. And then content creation was the other thing that kind of I blew the cap off.
Right.
6 months ago.
Yeah, because I've watched some of your content. It's so awesome. Like that you found your own unique style and voice. It's pretty cool. And like, you know, one of the questions I always get from other immigrants is this question about work. How do I get it? How do I find it? How do I push through whatever? Do I have to learn Finnish? In your experience, what would you tell someone like that?
So glad you asked. Because now I've had...
And you can clip this and use it to tell
them. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll probably tell it long and then try to get it shorter in a second. But
no,
so for example, I've now worked for 2 Finnish companies full time. I worked for part-time for a entrepreneur before. But the main thing that you need to realize first when you're looking for a job is what experience do you actually have? Like, for example, I was applying for a lot of jobs. I technically didn't have experience in any of these jobs that I was applying for because I just graduated from university in the US and I didn't have a lot of working experience. But for some reason, I'm like, well, why don't they see how great I could be at this? And then now when I've now worked for companies and we're hiring, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to hire someone with experience. Like if we're trying to fill a full-time role. So that's like the first thing is like, okay, do you actually have the experience for this? Then when I realized I didn't, because okay, let's see how I get there. But when I was applying for jobs and not hearing back, and I'm like, oh, they don't know how great I am and how much I am a fast learner. And like, that I do have some skills. I was like, you know what, let me reach out to someone who has this job that I applied for and talk to them and see what their experience is, what they've done to prepare for this. And then I talked to someone who had a job that I thought I was a perfect fit for. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, they have so much experience. They've actually worked with global accounts. They actually did a boot camp in coding. They actually know this, and that. I'm like, and I actually don't know any of that. So that was like a wake up call that, okay, maybe I'm not as qualified as I thought. I sent out 20 applications and I thought I should have got an interview, but really, there's no way I could have. Then I went back to university in Finland because I don't want to say it's free because for different people, it's free. Since I'm here on a residence permit, it's free for me. So I went back to university because I'm like, okay, apparently I need to do some more studying. And then I got an unpaid internship because I knew I need to get hands-on experience. And then worked really hard at that job. And then it turned into a full-time job. So I would say the biggest thing for someone looking to get a job is 1, talk to someone who has the job you think you want. Learn from them what they did to get there. And then you realize, okay, maybe that's actually not for me. I'm not interested in going to software boot camp and doing sales for 3 years in XYZ. Then you might pivot. Or you realize, okay, actually, I want to do that. Now I know the steps to get there. And so the unpaid internship, and then sometimes you have to do things for free or for low money. And I learned a lot of experience at the unpaid internship that I used in my next full-time job where I had a better title and a better income. And so talk to someone who has the job you want and then figure out how to get there. But don't just expect to get a call back for an interview because you applied somewhere and because you are a hard worker and because you can learn things fast, because companies hire people to do a certain job and they want the best person to do it.
And how important was the language in those pursuits?
No Finnish at all. I didn't need Finnish at all. So
Amazing.
Of course you have to know that the competition's higher for those because there's not so many jobs that have only English. But I didn't need Finnish at all for those. In Helsinki, there's a lot of opportunities. In Lahti, where I live, there was literally like 1 company that hired English speakers.
Right.
But yeah, so language isn't the most important thing if you have a highly experienced skill. Like once I had the unpaid internship, I had like a portfolio full of examples of why I could be the perfect fit for this job. I could look at everything on that job description and say, yes, I have an example of that. Yes, I have an example of that. Oh, guess what? I did that. But if you can't check those off, they're not going to hire you.
Yeah. Go for it.
Sorry, one more piece of advice that I did before I went back to university was reaching out to someone who inspires you as far as their work. So I knew when I first came to Finland, I was interested in culture and different, like bridging the gap between different cultures. And I loved Finland and different Finland topics. So I actually reached out to someone in the DMs. I was like, hey, I really like what you do. I have this idea for a type of content for you. what do you need help with anything? Like, I would love to just help you for free. And it turned into an assistant role that was maybe paying like 12 or 13 euros an hour. But again, so much hands-on experience that then I could prove to a company, I can do these things for you.
That's freaking awesome. I think that's some really great advice, because I get some of those questions all the time, especially when it comes to the whole language side of things. Yeah. Like, I remember when I first arrived here, music was what I was doing in South Africa. Right. And then I came here and I'm like, shit, like, there's nothing I really want to do besides music. So I decided to get into like the hospitality industry just to make a little bit of cash. And I remember I started off washing dishes because I was just like, yo, I'll do anything. Yeah. And Finland is quite unique. Well, a lot of the Nordic Scandinavian countries are quite unique, where with something like washing dishes, you can actually afford a little apartment and be able to, you can kind of live, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
But I remember every sort of place I went to, everyone was always like telling me that it would be impossible to be a waiter if you didn't speak Finnish. And I was quite new here, and I believed everyone for a while, because then I was just a runner every now and again, and then like helping out in the kitchen and stuff. And then one day I was like, no, that's pretty right. I'm sure I can nail this. And then I started applying for actual waitering. And then I started working for a company that basically loans you out to other restaurants. Like, the one I'm talking about now is called Staff Point. And then I told them, yeah, guys, I'm a waiter. I can do it. And because being a waiter paid quite a bit more than whatever. And I realized that just my mindset was a massive thing. Yeah. Because mentally I got shut down so often, because everyone was just like, yeah, it's impossible. You have to be able to whatever. But as soon as I was just like, okay, I can do it. Yeah. Even when it came to ordering food on the computer, everything was in Finnish. So I had to memorize certain things. That was really messed up.
That's amazing.
But being able to do that just taught me like another thing for people who are worried that for certain things, of course, if you're going to be a freaking surgeon, I'm pretty sure
you have to have adequate Finnish or that. Yeah. And I guess also for context, the jobs I was talking about was corporate. So like marketing, sometimes for sales, you might not need Finnish if it's international company. HR, you probably need some kind of Finnish because you need to comply with the Finnish laws. Yeah. Software, usually you don't need Finnish. My company hired a lot of software engineers who were not Finnish. Yeah. But of course, service-based industries, you probably should know a little bit of Finnish or be willing to figure it out as you go. Yeah.
Just be kind of, I guess the point is it's not impossible. Right. I think that's where a lot of people stumble when it comes to this. And so, like, I guess sort of in closing, like, what is your grand vision for Jade? Like, what is do you have an image of what you're working towards? Because you're traveling, you're starting to travel quite a bit more now, I guess, for work and stuff. Like, you're doing stuff for yourself. Like, where do you see yourself?
Yeah. Well, I do have a big dream, and maybe I don't go into detail about it now, but
Queen of the world.
Yeah, right? No, I do see myself owning a physical business in my lovely hometown, Lahti, that does bring joy, energy, and like a freshness to the city and kind of changes a certain industry. Maybe changes the fitness industry a little bit there, but that's down the line. But I do have a big dream and of establishing like a physical business. The digital side is really nice, and I'm really excited about the opportunities there. And for the next couple of years, I'll lean into it to continue to spread positivity, show different cultures, and help brands and companies also get in front of more people, because I think marketing is something I care about so much. And that's what gets me excited about different things is marketing. So influencer life, I love the marketing side of it. Corporate side, I'm like, ooh, let's think about marketing. So for the next couple of years, I'll focus on that. But maybe in a few years, look out for a business in Lahti by your very own Jade that maybe is something very new here. I don't really want to give away too much about it, but
okay, it's fine. We'll keep that under wraps and see where it goes to. And I guess the last question I'm just quite intrigued in is, do you miss America? Like, is there anything in your life in America that you genuinely miss? Or has it completely been supplanted by life here in Finland?
Good question. I miss my mom and my family, of course. And the other thing I genuinely miss is the food. Like Chick-fil-A, Waffle House. I miss the restaurants that were so accessible. But that's the truth. And I can't ignore that. Like, that is one of the things I miss. But as far as life goes...
Finnish people, she doesn't like your food.
I actually really like Finnish food too, but I do miss a lot of American foods. But yeah, no, my life here is just a very different life that I'm very grateful for and I love. And my life at home in USA was just so different because, again, leading up to university and during university, my whole life was about basketball from 7 years old to 22 years old, all about basketball, working to get into university. So also I just had a different life there. And now 22 through I'm 28 now. I've just been figuring out what life is in general, like a real adult life with a husband, with a home, figuring out hobbies. I never had hobbies before because I only played basketball. So life is just very different. So I don't miss a life I had in USA necessarily because I'm really making a life of my own now and discovering who I am and what I'd like to do.
That's so awesome. It's like, now that you say that, what the hell are my hobbies?
No, sounds like music. I mean, I guess it's a little bit of profession and a hobby.
Yeah, true. And also video making. Exactly. I just love it so much.
Yeah.
But I spend all my time doing it all the time. I sometimes feel like society expects us to have so many things sorted out so early on. Like, you know, the fact that you go to university at like 18 and you need to know what you want to study, presumably for what you want to do for the rest of your life. That's kind of crazy because now I am 32 now. And now I actually I love watching videos about physics and about how the universe works. And, you know, I'm doing like videography and stuff.
You're just discovering new things now, right? What you're interested in.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's really interesting. But Jade or Jade, Jade, I feel kind of strange saying Jade because it's like when I read your name, I always thought Jade. Yeah. But
it's funny because it also feels different to me. And I do say them differently. Like when I was talking about basketball earlier, I was saying Jade because it feels like a different person too. But I am one person, but I think the names also reflect just in my head, they're different.
Yeah, because there isn't a Finnish way of saying Chico.
Yeah.
That's kind of lame.
It's just Chico in all countries. All countries.
I know, right?
That's okay.
But Jade, thank you for joining me on the Easy Vibes podcast.
Yeah.
It was, do you want to tell people where they can follow you and stuff?
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me and keep the Easy Vibes going and bridging the gaps between cultures. But you can follow me at Jaja.Ciao on Instagram and TikTok and Jade Ventoniemi on LinkedIn if you want to connect, talk marketing, talk business. And Jaja.Ciao.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Done.